Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another instalment of That Was the Season That Was, a darting around special. My name is Jesse Dart, joined as always by Jaden Griffin. And Jaden, it's the most wonderful time of the year that's been delayed, but it's still feeling pretty darn wonderful.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm super excited for the final. Well, the rest of the finals. It's been some okay games so far. I think we made a bit of a fool of ourselves in the first episode with our predictions, but I always like when it's surprising and it's good to see a few underdogs get up. So, yeah.
So we're recording this on the Wednesday. A couple of big games coming up on both Friday and Saturday. We'll quickly use some tips before we get into the main subject of today's episode. We'll start off with Richmond versus Port. Very competitive game. I'm with Richmond here.
Yeah, me too. Port weren't convincing in the first game against Geelong for me. We've had a bit of a chat off air about it. I think it was more of a Geelong did not show up, then Port Adelaide particularly showed up. And I think the confidence Richmond will have gained from absolutely blasting St Kilda will really, really take them through the Grandy here.
Yeah, I think despite the extra game, I think Richmond will come into this game a lot more fitter and prepared than Port may be. And I just think that experience will just come into it. So I'm going with Richmond by 22 points.
Yeah, I think I'll go Richmond by 5 goals. I do like the fact that some of the older players at Port have had the week off. I think it's going to be really good for Boak and Rockcliffe as well, especially someone who's struggled with injury notoriously throughout his career. I think it's really good for them, but I still don't think it's going to be quite enough. Richmond aren't going to be tired either, I don't think, because there was a lot of players resting in that St Kilda game, given it was pretty much over at halftime. So Saints sort of, gave a little bit of a comeback towards the end, but yeah, I think Richmond are coming in pretty fresh and they have the edge for me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. And we'll move on now to Geelong and Brisbane. I don't think there's any prizes for guessing what I'm going to tip in this one, given they are my fire tip. I'm going to stick in the categories corner. Again, the finals hoodoo was definitely present in the Port game, but big confidence booster against Collingwood.
Yeah, it was. They absolutely obliterated them. It was, again, another thing we've spoken about off air. It kind of gave me some GWS grand final vibes of Collingwood really stealing that win against the Eagles and then just giving up. It felt like they didn't even think they could win from minute one. There was no real competitiveness. There was no leadership from Pendlebury, who's one of my favourite players, but he was very disappointing. Grundy didn't show up, and Dangerfield did Dangerfield things and really just picked them apart.
Yeah, they were definitely showing out to be vulnerable Collingwood. I think they deserve a lot of praise for beating West Coast the previous week. Very important game, but that was their grand final, realistically. I think there's been a lot of disappointment about Collingwood's performance against Geelong. I don't see it that way almost. I feel like they definitely exceeded expectations getting to where they were. Maybe they wanted more at the start of the season. That's a debate for another time. We've obviously gone through that a little bit in one of our previous That Was the Season That Was episodes, but I think all things considered, I'm happy to give Collingwood a pass mark for the final series.
Yeah, for the finals, I think that's great, beating Eagles. I think if Eagles had have won, I think they would have given Geelong a much better run for their money, possibly even beaten them. But it was really good to see Collingwood get up. Like you said, probably expected more at the start of the season. But overall, for a final series, you can't be unhappy taking out the Eagles, who, like we've talked about, always a danger in the finals.
For sure. Well, look, we'll stop waffling now. We'll stop rambling. People paid good money to hear a Brownlow show, and they're going to get it now. So, a few days out from the Big Charlie. Always an exciting thing for me. One of my favourites. We'll start with going through team by team, assessing who we think is going to come on top for each team. Now, we are taking these from betting sites, so we'll be quoting odds. Don't forget to never chase your losses, gamble responsibly, and only for over 18. I think we're covered?
Yeah, we're covered.
Okay, cool. No lawsuits regarding our own podcast today. Right, well, we'll start, of course, with the worst team, Adelaide. We're going alphabetically, but they just happen to both be first and worst, so 2 for the price of 1 there. I mean, is anyone from this team going to win the Brownlow? No, but
no chance. No.
Roy Laird is acting favourite for the most votes for Adelaide.
Yeah, I actually don't agree with that personally. I don't think Adelaide pull the vote for the first 13 rounds. Like, I actually don't think. Tex Walker won their leading goal kicker with 15 goals. We've talked about how absolutely dismal Adelaide were, and it was hard to call what they were doing football. In saying that, they really stepped up at the end of the season, and I thought that was off the back of almost 3 best-on-ground performances from Matt Crouch, which is why I think he gets the nod for me. I know there'll be a few games where Laird will poll a few ones, and possibly even a 2 because he has had some big games this year. But I don't think he gets past Matt Crouch's 9 votes for me.
The only danger is the umpires might get the Crouches confused.
Yeah, that is true. And also, there is a chance Sloan polls 3 for one of those because he also had a big game. But I think for me, it's Crouch. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I can't argue with that. He's at $3 at the moment. He's second favourite for this. I think that's a bit of value if you were inclined to have a bet on Brownlow night. I think that actually could be one of my better bets of the night in fairness, especially at $3.
At $3 odds, I think it's a good shout. I think it's 50-50 between him and Laird, and with Laird being the favourite, there's no reason to not chuck it on the outsider.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So Crouch is our pick for the Brownlow. Adelaide, of course. Now we'll move on to Brisbane. I don't think there's any question who's going to poll the most votes here, both for the team and for the league itself. Lockie Neal.
Yeah, Eric Hipwood for me.
That's the first one. Someone clip that. We're keeping that.
No, you're right. I think this is the biggest shoe-in year since the famous, Dangerfield, Dustin Martin 2 record-breaking seasons. I don't think anyone comes close to Neal.
Even Bridge Fife into that list.
Yeah, true. Few years before that, a year before that.
So it was 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, but I think he's just beaten everyone out on consistency. Don't necessarily think he's had the highest peaks in the league, and we've talked about that in our tier list. How we do think there are a few players that can be more impactful in individual moments, but the way that he was able to do it consistently throughout the whole season, only really struggled in 2 games all year with that tag. But with people like Lyons and Zorko around him, still manages to find an impact, kicks a few goals, and I think he's a shoe-in.
Look, we'll obviously redo our tier lists at the start of the season, but I think Neal's tier 1 now. I think the big question mark we had was, can he break a tag? That was what held us back at the time.
In fairness, I still think the answer is no. But I think his general consistency is a lot higher than we perhaps expected initially.
I agree. So I think for that reason, he'll probably go on my tier 1 list.
I think he probably does break into it. Especially if he can perform in this final series.
I know this is going to break your heart, but I want to keep it to 4, which means Cripps probably drops to tier 2. I know that hurts.
Yeah, okay. After the season he's had, you're probably right. I think he definitely has the ability to break back in.
His ceiling is tier 1, no doubt.
But he has had a bit of a not as impactful year. Which is sad. I think he's battling injury. Hopefully the shoulder Rico brings him back better than ever. But we'll have to see. I do agree with you, though. Neal does replace Cripps in that list.
Yeah, I don't think there's any argument on that at the moment. So the market for Brisbane's most votes is without Lockie Neal, because that's pretty obvious that he's going to win the Brownlow. Jared Lyons at $1.30, another one of my best bets of the night. I think he's pretty much come. This is turning into a gambling show.
I think the odds are justified, though. I don't really think anyone is going to have anywhere near as many votes as Lyons when you take Neal out of the equation. There's a few big games from Zorko. Jared Berry had a good year, but nothing close to what Lyons was able to put up, especially impressive considering how dominant Neal has been.
Zorko will hoover up a lot of 1s, whereas Lyons will hoover up a lot of 2s. I think that's the key difference there. So Lyons for me there.
And Brisbane won a lot of games, so their team will poll a lot of votes as well, which generally means the better player will win. It's not like with Adelaide. It's not necessarily that Crouch was better for the year, but it's that Crouch was better in their wins. Whereas because Brisbane won so many games, I think it will regulate a bit more, and Lions is a super safe bet. Yeah,
I completely agree with that. It's hard to dispute that at all. For Carlton, Sam Walsh is the top pick. Then it's Patrick Cripps. Then it's nothing. $17 down to Ed Kono in third. So pretty comfortably here for Walsh and Cripps.
Yeah, do you know what Walsh is actually paying for the actual Brownlow? Because I didn't see him on there, but I saw Cripps at 67, which is a bit odd considering Walsh is favourite to win most votes.
That implies that Walsh is probably about 40 then, I'd say.
Yeah, well, that does imply that, but I couldn't see him anyway. I'll have to double-check that one. But, yeah, I just don't think Cripps really had that explosiveness this year that he did have last year, where he managed to pull. It's not that he polled in a lot of games, it's that every game he polled 3. Whereas this year, I don't think it was like that for Cripps. And Walsh definitely stepped up towards the back end of the season, got over a bit of those second-year blues, no pun intended. And
yes, pun intended.
And yeah, he was really good to watch. Actually, I would love to see him next year just lift his head because he does love to just jam it on the boot. But he will pull the most for Carlton. I have no doubts.
Yeah, I'm happy to stick with Walsh on Carlton for that. That's my tip for it. Now you weren't sure about Taylor Adams for top of Collingwood. You were a bit shaky on him. You went with Pendlebury, am I right?
Yeah, so I think Pendlebury, Grundy is a bit of an outsider as well. There's a few people and Degoe always polls votes where he doesn't deserve, purely because he is one of those impact players. I think he was.
I knew he'd creep his way into this one.
But I think you can't
He's
disagree.
got a did you hear the news?
Oh, I hope he doesn't.
I wanted to get your live reaction to that.
I really hope he doesn't. But you can't disagree that he will steal a few threes purely because of how much he does take over a game when he does do it.
Did he have the best on ground this year, though?
I think he had at least 2. Did he not kick 4 goals?
Okay, that's one.
Twice? Maybe he has at least 1.
Are you overrating the go?
No, I'm not overrating
You are.
the go. Okay, I'm overrating how much umpires rate him possibly.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
I don't think I didn't even say I think he deserves the votes. I just think he'll get them. And I think Pendlebury's been really incredible. Obviously disappointing against Geelong, but I think he made the 40. I don't necessarily know if he made the A18, but I do think he had a really good year. Just shows that composure that we need. And yeah, Taylor Adams is good, but I think he only really shined when Treloar was out, which wasn't the whole season. And I don't know if he'll pull enough in those games to bring it home for Collingwood.
No support for Treloar?
I think he could do it again.
He's at $11 in the market.
Yeah, it's because he goes at about 30% efficiency for me, and I think that's something
very true.
That's something you really notice when you're down there on the ground as an umpire, I think. So that's why I'm not really giving him much of a shout. But it could definitely do it. Has had some real good games this year as well. And that's another thing for me. Collingwood are going to have a lot of shared voters. There's going to be, I think, the first 2 games of the year, Howe will hold 3 as well. He was phenomenal in the first 2 games. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting at Collingwood. There might be a couple of people up in the 7 to 15 vote mark, so it should be one to watch.
I don't think any Collingwood players will get into the top 10 purely because there's too many of them scrapping it up for votes.
I completely agree with that.
And we'll go through our top 10s a bit later on when we finish up with these 18 teams. Got on to Essendon next. And this is like Farlap taking on a bunch of horses down in Launceston, isn't it?
It is.
It's Zach Merritt all the way here. I don't personally think he's that good.
But neither are Essendon.
And therein lies the problem, Jaden. They are not very good, and they're only going to get worse next year. Merritt, does he get a top 10 spot purely because Essendon don't have anything else around him? So when Essendon win, he gets 3?
Yes, but did Essendon win enough games to squeak into the 10? I think it's going to be a high-polling year. I think a lot of good players were good all year.
That's fair.
There were a lot of players who really kept up the consistency this year.
We usually have 1 or 2 that have a fantastic... I remember Chris Judd, when Bartel won, had a phenomenal start to the year, and I think injuries curtailed him a bit.
Yeah, I think, wasn't he up at like 20 votes from the first 10 and then like 3 from the last 10 or something like that?
Yeah, he just went for it, and then he obviously... you do see players like that from time to time, but this year...
I think it's a testament to the shorter quarters as well. I think players' bodies held out for longer, they came back fresher, and they were able to do it for longer without as much rest.
But I think that makes... And I know we don't like, praising Dustin Martin too much on the show, but I think that's what makes his year all the more impressive as well.
Oh, it for sure does.
He was phenomenal.
He was phenomenal. And that the Fife and Dangerfield years as well. That's why... Dusty was tier 2, but that's why Dangerfield and Fife were in our tier 1 because of the incredible things that they can do for such long periods of time. And I'm not sure if they're planning on doing it, but if the quarters go longer and we have a 22-round season again next year and Neil does the same thing, he is looking at best player in the comp for me. Yeah,
I can't argue that. I can't think of anyone that beats him if he matches his consistency again next season.
Yeah.
He's just too good. But look, back to Essendon. We'll go back to Essendon now.
Oh yeah, it's Merritt all the way. Shield had some bursts, and then other than that, they didn't really have anything.
Well, to give you an indication of the market, Merritt $1.10, Shield $6, McGrath $7.50.
Oh yeah, I forgot about McGrath.
Next best Ridley at $34.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really diamond in Essendon season.
And in fairness, Ridley's been very good, but just never in those vote getting situations. He was never really a top 3 player in a game. And I think the only player from Essendon who was able to do that even somewhat consistently was Merritt.
Yeah, of all the players in that Bombers lineup, he's probably the one that's going to get the 3 votes when it's up for it. And I think it's fair to go with him. Now, look, Fremantle, I'm actually tipping an upset here. I am. It's a bit of a surprise. Fife is the far and away favourite here on $1.20. But after the year Andrew Brayshaw had, I'm willing to look at those 550 odds and say that could be something that just snakes one there.
Honestly, I'm picking Brayshaw as well. As much as I love Fife, I don't think he played enough footy.
He wasn't at his best this season either. I don't think.
I still think he was very, very good. And there were a couple of games he played that he did genuinely take over. I think it was unfortunate for him when you guys played us. He had one of the best quarters I've ever seen in the first quarter and kind of died. And that's kind of an indication of the season he's had. He's showed real glimpses of being back to that best player in the competition, but he wasn't able to do it for as long as.
I was surprised, especially with the shorter career. I thought that would really help him.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened. He might be battling an injury as well, maybe something similar to Cripps. Someone who's carried so much weight and played such hard footy for so long, on so many injuries as well, shoulder, leg, probably.
But also, the one thing I'll say is he hasn't had to do it by himself this year.
Yeah,
which is where it's always been the issue.
And
that's why Walters went to midfield last season, because it's always been 5.
But neither is Cripps, and ironically, that's made them both take a step back, I think, which is good for their longevity. But it does hurt their chances of making a Brownlow. But if we get an extra 2-3 years of these two boys being in the AFL, I think it's worth it.
But look,
I'm tipping Brayshaw as well, to be honest.
5 has 2 Charlies. You can never rule him out of getting a third. Maybe next season.
Oh, for sure. Could easily come back to his best.
I'd love to see him get 3.
Would I.
Personally, I think he's a player. Obviously, I've got a heavy bias in this race being a Fremantle supporter, but the loyalty to the club, the consistent top performance, the passion he shows for the team.
It's pretty insane, isn't it, how you really didn't think you'd ever see another Pavlich-esque in terms of loyalty and consistent.
We got another Pavlich while we had the first one.
Yeah, I know.
That's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And he's done it for, like you said, he's done it for so long. He's never turned his back on that club, despite obviously having many opportunity to with some of the contracts. I'm sure
and some seasons many reasons to as well.
Yeah, but no, he's a really good player. I would also love to see him get a third. I think he's if he can continue to keep it up for a long time, he's a good chance of being the best player that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I still think it's still Cousins for me.
So I think I'm Judd over Pete. I'm Judd for Pete, and I'm Gary Ablett Jr. for career. Obviously, the more years Gadge plays now, it probably hurts his legacy a little bit because of the recency bias. But I think there's a reason we call him the Little Master.
Yeah. I'm happy to stick with Cousins, purely because I've never seen anyone take over a game quite like him.
And that's completely fair enough. He was incredible. He's probably
but I can also
the best kicker I've ever
understand,
seen.
in fairness, I would agree with you on career-wise for Gadge. I can't see anyone having the incredible career. He essentially built Gold Coast.
He did.
I mean,
then he tore him down.
They might be crap now, but he did make them something.
Yeah.
And arguably that team fails if he doesn't go.
That's a whole other story. I think they probably fold.
Yeah. That's another discussion for another day, but definitely up there. We'll move on to Geelong now. No surprise to see Paddy Dangerfield holding favouritism. Obviously a choke on umpire support, but I don't think it's as clear cut as that.
No, I don't think it is either. I think he's another one, actually, from our Tier 1 list who has taken a little bit of a step back this year. We've talked about...
All 4 have, really.
Yeah, they have indeed. But we've talked about Cripps and Fife not needing to do as much, and I think with really the elevation we've seen from Guthrie, and I guess Menegola kind of getting his things right.
Duncan too.
And Duncan as well. Duncan's always been a player that gets a lot of touches though. But I think it's given Dangerfield a lot more freedom to do what he wants. And we saw it last week, we can still see him absolutely dominate the game. But he doesn't have to do it all the time now, and Geelong can still be a contender. So I think he's probably my pick, but you're right, it's not clear-cut.
I'm going to swing a surprise. I think Guthrie's done enough here.
Guthrie has had a very, very good year. I would not be surprised to see him take it, and I think I could probably say the same thing about Duncan.
I'm actually going to go and say Guthrie squeaks top 10. I think he's 10th, but I think he squeaks it.
Wow, big call. Could definitely do it.
Because we have one every year.
A lot of vote stealers, though. Hawkins is going to bag a few.
It's not threes, though.
Yeah, we're against Port.
That's the only one I can think of, though.
I think he's kicked 4 twice. And
but how many times do we see forwards get 3 votes when they kick 4?
Well, that's true. It's not your Lance Franklin anymore.
It's the midfield medal.
It is the midfield medal. You're right, but it's still hard to argue.
Look, I think he'll get 3 for Port.
Yeah, well, he kicked 6, so you bloody better hope so.
He won't get 3 for Port in the elimination final. That was crap.
It was awful.
That was bad.
It was awful, and it's a day in the life of a key forward, isn't it? If you can't know his set shots, you are essentially dead weight.
And he really was.
He was dead weight. He had a lot of the ball and just did not do anything with it. It was super unfortunate. But I am surprised you're picking Guthrie for top 10. He won't be in mine.
Look, I don't think he's nailed on for top 10, but I think he's. If I'm going to go with an outsider, because we know what the narrative's been for the last few weeks. It's going to be Neil. It's going to be Boak. It's going to be Steele. It's going to be these typical Petrarch, all these guys coming in. I think Guthrie might sneak it.
Yeah, I can see it happening. Like I said, I probably won't pick him.
And it comes down to the bias with the Brownlow regarding like hairstyles, just like noticeable feature. It's definitely
It is true. You're 100% right. The players you notice tend to poll more votes when it comes down to.
Like Guthrie is Costco Fife in terms of hair.
He is. But when it comes down to two players who played an almost identical game, they're always going to pick a Brian Myers over a Liam Bacon. They're always going to pick the dude with the big dreads or... Yeah, you're right.
So I'm pretty happy with Guthrie to be my pick there.
Fair enough.
He's definitely a smoky, and I'm more than happy that, from how I say I was wrong.
What's he paying for top vote getter for Geelong?
5.
That's not too bad. Can't believe Brayshaw's paying more, though.
It's a bit of value, yeah.
They really think Fife has that a shoe-in. Hey, how many games did he even play?
He probably played 75% of the games.
Yeah,
which might be enough for a player of his class.
I think he played... Well, we won it off 16 one year, didn't he?
Yeah, something obscene like that. So he's definitely capable. Now, Gold Coast is a fascinating one. Because Matt Rowell has played about 4 games of AFL footy, and he's $1.15 to get the most votes for the Gold Coast.
And I don't think you can argue that he won't.
No.
I think, what was it, 3 of their wins came from the 4 games he played or something like that. And he top voted in all of them.
He's that good.
They went, sorry, how many games did he play? 4?
A max 4.
So I think they went either 2-2 or 3-1. But I still think he polls 8 or 9 from those 4 games.
And just doesn't get taken.
And then Gold Coast went, 2-13 or something for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Realistically, I don't think anyone else gets 8 or 9 votes for them. I think it's a shoe-in for Rowell.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. As bizarre as it is, and maybe it is an indictment of how bad Gold Coast actually are, I think Rowell...
And they are bad.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a fan of jumping in the $1.15 pops, then, go crazy on this one. But I think Rowell...
The Rowell merit multi for me.
That's the quickest way to go bankrupt. Gamble responsibly to all you folks at home tuning in. So, look, GWS next. We had a bit of conjecture on this. Whitfield's the favourite. I can certainly understand why.
Oh, as can I.
But this is one I would sit out on a betting perspective.
Oh, there's no way I would put money on... No, there was no way I would put money on who will top vote get for GWS. I can see a world where it's Whitfield, Kelly, or Canelio.
Well, Canelio, funny you mention that, $15 for him.
Yeah, see, maybe I could justify putting 10 on because of the outlandish odds, but I don't think you can give either of those 3 any more than a 40% chance of taking it out.
No finish top 10, obviously.
No, I
don't. Not with GWS.
Yeah, exactly. Not with the season GWS has had. And I think in their wins, we have seen phenomenal performances from all 3 of those players, not necessarily them leaning on one. And obviously, Cogs did drop off a bit towards the end of the season. I still think it was undeserved, but he did get dropped for a reason. I think that reason is that Leon Cameron is not very smart. But you can't argue that his performance did drop off, but I do think he polls enough at the start of the year when GWS looked okay, and that's why it is for me.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that, any of the above at all. He's definitely able to drag votes. It's one that I don't think any of them are making top 10. I don't think any of them is anything like to bet in. And
I think Canelio has a few of those flashy moments as well that tend to get you to steal the 1 or 2 votes when maybe you didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Which I think will help him as well.
And the captaincy too as well. You can't forget that side of things either.
Yeah.
It was certainly
Plus he's beautiful.
All right, then. you do you, sunshine. So look, Hawthorn, Tom Mitchell's clear favourite here. I don't think he makes top 10 this year though.
No, I agree. Again, it's another one
Hawthorn
of those...
was too poor this year.
Yeah, and it's another one of those poor teams. It's a above average player on a really poor team.
Yeah.
He hasn't been phenomenal. And again, we know there was a shorter quarters, so we're not expecting, 3 50-touch games from Titch. But he just didn't look anywhere near the level that we have seen him at the last couple of years. Not that he was bad in any way, but with how badly Hawthorn struggled and how almost non-existent Jaeger and Mira was, and the stagnation of Warple's development, I think it hurt Mitchell a lot.
His lack of form was noticeable, I think, purely because you're used to seeing him at the top of the stat sheet, and in a few games this year, he just wasn't there.
Yeah.
I
saw 2 games where he was at 9 touches at 3/4 time.
Yeah.
Which he usually has that 5 minutes into the game,
He didn't come to the races this year, Tom Mitchell. He's probably still going to poll the most for Hawthorn, but I don't think he was fantastic this year.
No, he wasn't. I think the only person that maybe takes it on a very, very outside chance is Wingard, purely because of how brilliantly he started the season.
Okay, that's fair.
I think he has at least 6 from their first 4 games, Wingard. But I think Titch will snag enough 1s and 2s in there to get past him. Because, again, Wingard is another one who just did not show up for the latter half of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, disappointing for Hawthorn this year. We've talked about that, obviously, on the previous episode of That Was the Season That Was, but I think they'll bounce back a bit next year. I can't see them being as poor as they were this year.
No, I don't think so. Clarkson as well, like, he's always going to give you that little bit of extra faith in any team that he's coaching. So, yeah, I'd agree with you.
Look, Melbourne, from an individual perspective, is probably a shoe, and I think Petrarca walks away with this one. I don't think he polls as well as people think, though.
I don't think so.
And this is my controversial opinion. I actually don't think he's a lock for the top three, as most people have said.
I don't think he is either. I have no doubt that it's really good to see what he's done because he has kind of...
He's come along.
He's been one that we've been talking about for a long time in footy of when is he really going to break out. And I think this was his breakout year. But I also think Gawn was phenomenal this year. I think Gawn is a massive part of why they were so good. And you cannot deny also the impact that Clary Oliver has had. I think both of those players have had more than their fair share of best on ground performances. And you're right, Petrarca will not poll as well as people think.
Gawn always takes votes purely because you can't ignore him. Oliver will always take votes purely because he's very good.
Yeah, he's a contested ball machine, Oliver. And Gawn with his contested marks. The man turns from a ruckman into a centre-half back just seemingly at will.
I think that he probably has them covered in terms of Melbourne.
Yeah, I would agree.
And he probably finishes top 5, but he's not a lock for the top 3 like a lot of people have. I don't think he's had a season that warrants being third in the Brownlow.
I don't think he polls 20 votes. I don't think his season's been anywhere near as good as the season Brayshaw had, when Brayshaw came a smoky second.
I think they're probably on par for me.
Yeah, I don't know. Not for me. I think Petrarca had a lot more help, which sounds weird because
for sure.
it sounds weird because we know how good Melbourne were that year, but Brayshaw.
But also Melbourne's cores have collapsed around him as the midfield's gotten stronger.
Yeah, well that's true. But Brayshaw that year was absolutely phenomenal. Plus he had the helmet, with you notice the people who look different.
And I will stand by that bias until the day I die. That very much exists in the Brownlow.
It does, I agree.
Because you stick to what you know. It's the reason that people buy shirts or bought jerseys of Nathan Fyfe not locking you when he's with the Dockers.
Yeah.
And Fyfe is obviously the better player.
Chris Judd would have 5 Brownlows if he had a neck tattoo like Dusty.
Well, wouldn't he just? Well, the borders probably helped him later on.
Yeah, a little bit. It's so shiny.
Very shiny. We'll move on to North Melbourne. This is interesting because we had a chat yesterday off air, and I said I threw North Melbourne at you, and without even hesitating, you smacked me straight away with Josh Simpkin.
Yeah, I think we know how terrible North Melbourne were at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think they won a game in the last 2 months. Maybe they scraped one. I can't remember exactly.
They jammed one, I'm pretty sure.
But there was a time at the start of the season, and I think we all forget from recency bias. I'm the same sometimes. It wasn't really until I took a look the other night at sort of the developing ladder through the rounds, and I was like, that's right. Adelaide have always been terrible.
They really do suck.
No, but I remember there was genuine talks of can North scrape the 8, and that was off an absolutely phenomenal start to the year by Simpkin. He was, I think people forget, but he was in early talks for the Brownlow if he could keep it up. I know it was very early. We're talking round 4, but that means he must be at your, again, it's maybe 8 votes from the first 4 rounds, and I don't know if anyone else in North did enough to take that many votes. And Simpkin still had a few really good performances middle of the year too. So for me, it's Simpkin. I know he's a real outsider.
We're at $5 in the market right now.
Yeah, so he's at 5, which is a real outsider. But I think he's every chance for me.
Well, all I'm going to say right now is for the people at home, if they were so inclined and they wanted to do this, there's no reason they couldn't multi up Brayshaw with Simpkin.
And maybe Guthrie.
Well, that's what I'm going at here. 5 to 25.
5 of that is 125.
$10 on that.
Oh, mate, you could be a rich man.
You could.
Gamble responsibly.
What's the
but no, what about you?
What's the helpline number?
Who are you taking for North?
Look, I actually completely agree with you. I think you've definitely made a strong push for Simpkin here. I can definitely get on the back of that. Anderson is a favourite, not for me. Goldstein, it's not 2014 anymore.
It's too hard, isn't it, when you watch Gawn and Nick Nat take over the competition this year. That's another reason I don't think anyone's really talking about Grundy, who is, if you told me 2 years ago, I would have said Grundy is a lock to win a Brownlow in his career. But
I wouldn't have said lock, but I would have said I would have said more than 5 votes this season.
Yeah. But I said at some point in his career, Grundy, but he's significantly dropped off this year. And I think it's just because of the raw impact Gordon and Nick Nat have had, and it's really dropped off the significance of other ruckmen in the comp, which I think hurts Goldstein.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, honestly, good on Goldie for keeping performing at this level.
Sure.
For as long as he
sure.
has. I'm actually surprised.
Runs out 4 quarters too, which is very, very impressive.
He's very consistently been in the top 5 ruckmen in the competition without crossing third. And I think that's very indicative of North.
Well, I think 2012 to 2014, he was probably a case for number 1.
Not with Sandilands. Not at that time.
With the amount of footy Sandy missed, maybe 14 then.
Okay, I'll give you 14.
Yeah, maybe 14 when Sandy started to miss more footy. But I think he was almost a lock top 2 then with Sandilands.
Yeah, okay, I can accept it.
But I agree, he has sat around that 3rd to 5th mark. But it is impressive for how long he's done it.
Now, Travis Boak wipes the floor with Port's nomination. He's not even in the market for the most votes there. So we'll kind of go around him on this one. I think Boak finishes second in the Brownlow. Just to spoil part of my top 10.
I disagree.
Okay, that's interesting.
But I do have a sneaky pick for number 2.
All right, we'll keep...
Well, actually, it's not that sneaky. It's just not Boak or Petrarca. Which kind of is sneaky.
It is a bit sneaky, because that's been the two most tossed up ones so far. I'm going to stick with Boak for second. I think he's had a phenomenal year. I think the media's gotten behind him, which helps. And I think a lot of footy in Adelaide has helped him as well.
Yeah.
So, and it's obviously he's team on top of the ladder.
Yeah, exactly right.
So that always helps too.
A lot of wins, a lot of votes to be shared.
I mean, Chad Corns finished third in the Brownlow.
Yeah, that's weird. It's a weird time.
Bad.
I do like
I like
Chad. A lot better than his brother.
Controversial.
Well, as a person, maybe not as a brother.
As a human being, yes.
Yeah.
But he did come from Graham, so there are still questions.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But look, we'll keep Corns family reunions debate to one side for now. We're not footy classifieds. Thank Christ. Wine's the favourite outside of Boak in the market with $1.70. Rockcliffe at $2.85, $7 the rest. Wine's... I'm almost tempted because when Boak doesn't get 3 votes in the game, Rockcliffe does.
Yeah. Oh, so for me, I think Wines probably wins it. But I think if you're a betting man, I think you take Rocky at $2.85.
You do.
Over Wines at $1.15, if that makes sense.
I think Wine's $1.70.
Sorry, $1.70, $2.80. I still think you take Rocky there. I think it's probably, at worst, 60-40 for Wines.
Yeah, I think Wines has an edge because you get a lot of ones and twos, but I think... And also, Rockcliffe did miss part of the season as well.
And Wines' head is huge. It's hard to miss him.
That photo you sent me the other day was hilarious.
It is a good photo.
It's a square.
It is a square. He does have
his head is our logo.
Yeah, it is.
When you look at it.
He genuinely does have a square head. I can't believe... No wonder the man's not very fast. He's no aerodynamics about him.
Isaac Newton must look at him and just shake his head in sadness.
What happened in our evolutionary period?
I did so well. And on this camera, this weird-looking man. I mean, look, I want to talk about odd appearances, but Wine's a good player.
Really good player. Hard at the ball. Like I said, probably 60% chance to take this, but I don't hate Rockcliffe at $2.85 yet.
Now, if you're a betting man, you steer clear of Richmond because if Dustin Martin's out of this, he's been accepted as the most votes, so this is about the rest. Shai Bolton is the favourite, just over Cochin, then to Lambert, then the rest. I wouldn't want to play into Bolton versus Cochin here. That's not something I want to play.
See, I don't know, because I know in the past, Cochin's probably had a little bit of umpire bias.
Well,
even getting away with... Wasn't that one they took off Joe?
Yeah, it's a cheap Brownlow.
Is that winning?
Look, I don't think you'd ask if that's Boston's Brownlow, but...
That's not winning. That's the consolation prize. You have to have it because we can't have
sometimes
nobody.
that's more satisfying.
I would rather have nobody have won that year.
I would rather Watson kept it.
So would I. But if they were going to take it off Watson for the whole scandal, and again, that's another story for another day, I would have rather no one have it than give it to Cochin on some sort of technicality, just because someone has to have won the Brownlow. Give it to Watson and then put a little star next to his name, you know what I mean, in the record sheets. Maybe he doesn't get the physical medal, but you need to know that he had the most votes there and he had the best season. Cochin didn't. And I think that's actually fallen away for Cochin. I don't think he gets as much. Obviously, I think he gets away with a lot of reports that he probably should get, little cheap hits off the ball, but I don't know if he's going to poll as well. Interestingly for me, I think this is between Bolton and arguably, for me, Jaden Short.
That's $7.
Yeah, I think Short has gone wildly underrated this year, and I think there might be something in him that the umpires might spot because he's had a phenomenal year. I think he's really taken to that role. He's picked up really well. And I hope he just, sneaks a few ones and twos there. I don't think he's had any threes, which will hurt him. But then again, most of Richmond's threes will probably be taken by Dusty. So, yeah, we'll see.
I can't disagree with that. Looking ahead now to St Kilda, don't think there's any question who takes the most votes. So this market is without Steele.
Yeah, who is, by the way, my number 2.
Well, you bloody well spotted, didn't you?
I think he takes second. I think he's had a great year. Really, really phenomenal year. But it's also because who else on St Kilda do you care about?
Yeah.
Billings?
Well, that's why Zach Jones is the favourite.
Yeah, and which is wild to me. Absolutely wild.
So you'd be happy to make Billings a good bet here at
So,
$2.75?
do you want to read the top 4?
Top 4, okay. So we've got Zach Jones $1.85, Billings $2.75, Rowan Marshall $4.50, Dan Butler $11.
See, I hate all of those options. I probably would pick Billings on... I don't think Zach Jones was good enough to be $1.85.
Right.
Maybe he still wins it, but I think Billings is...
I've been looking more
better.
about a $2.50 quote for Jones before I started considering it.
Yeah, I think Billings is every chance to take it out. And Rowan Marshall's had a few big games as well. I just don't really remember... I don't think anyone from St Kilda is going to poll 3 besides Steele, honestly. I don't really remember anyone having massive games besides him. And because St Kilda actually did win quite a lot of games, that's why I'm actually backing him for second.
Yeah, fair. I'm happy to stay out of St Kilda from a betting proposition.
I would too, yeah.
Steele is the obvious answer, though.
Yeah.
Excluding the market. Avoiding the market, Steele wins that. Sydney is an interesting one. Parker's the obvious answer. He's out of this market, though, so we have to go without it. So it's $2.50 in the field. One of the most open ones we've seen so far. Josh Kennedy, despite playing about 2 games this year, which I think says it all about
another Matty Rowell, isn't it?
$2.15. Lloyd at 4. Papley at 5. Heaney only played about 7 games. Is at 8. And then double figures the rest.
Yeah, I think Kennedy wins it. I think Lloyd is an outside chance, but I just think his performances are often so forgettable.
I think people have figured him out.
They don't feel like 40-touch performances, do they? You see the stat sheet and you're usually pretty surprised. You don't remember him having that much ball. And I just think it's because he is the classic Seagull. And he's good at it.
Now, you know I'm a fan of a most disposal.
You are a fan of a most
disposal. In my
disposal.
same game multi. It's been both the birth and the death of me on multiple occasions. He's great for that, Lloyd, but my God, he's just not a very good player, is he? He's got a good kick on him.
I think
the one thing that might get him a $4 is he does have a good kick on him.
In fairness, I think he's carved his niche very well for his skill set.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, you're right. I don't think even with how good he has been in his role, I don't think you ever take him top 10 in a draft.
He's just better Whitfield, isn't he?
Is he better than Whitfield? Though?
I would take Lloyd over Whitfield.
I don't think I would. I think I prefer Whitfield's versatility.
I think Lloyd's ball use in the role he plays is justification enough for me to keep him in.
Fair enough, and Lloyd does have a very good kick. I just think...
I can understand why people prefer Whitfield, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, I love the versatility, and I think Whitfield has him beat there.
But put it this way, as a Fremantle supporter, if you were to offer either, I'd be taking Lloyd purely because we cannot kick out of defence, and Lloyd's ability to take kick-ins and just tell Nathan Wilson that, no, Nathan, you're not AFL standard, it's time to go, would serve us well. And
maybe that's swaying me as well, because as a Carlton supporter, Lloyd doesn't get a game with Doherty. Well, he doesn't get the same role, I don't think. Whereas I think we can find a spot for Whitfield. I think Doherty is just... Carlton don't have good enough ball usage to make use of someone as Seagully is Lloyd, if that makes sense.
That's fair. Whereas I think with Luke Ryan on the side, Lloyd actually benefits and gets better.
He does. Yeah, he does. Luke Ryan's an amazing kick out of defence. We have Liam Jones.
Why do you want that? Remember when he was bad at the Bulldogs?
Remember when he was bad at Carlton?
Yes, it was last week.
It's very recent. Long year.
It's recent history. Remember when he threw the ball to Eddie Betts?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Here you go, Edward. Have some of that. Get that up here.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Look, Liam Jones is not in the Brownlow conversation, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I don't think he polls... Has he ever polled a vote?
Probably.
Is there a market for him to never poll a vote in his career?
Right, so what's the stakes if he does poll a vote this year in the Brownlow then, Jen?
Oh, you want to go $20?
No, because it's Liam Jones.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I just wanted to get a really strong...
I saw fear strike in your eyes when I named that figure, because you know he's not polling.
Did you see fear in my eyes when I said Geelong would win a game in the final series?
No, and again, I really wish I put a caveat that if Eagles didn't win, you don't get it.
Because... You can only bet what's in front of you, Jen.
And I completely agree, and that's why I will pay up. But, yeah.
Eventually.
Eventually, exactly. But I don't know what we're talking about.
Well, it was Liam Jones.
Oh yeah, it was Liam.
It was
Sydney.
Sydney.
Yeah, it was Jake Lloyd, wasn't it?
How we ended up with Geelong when we're talking about Jake Lloyd?
It was Jake Lloyd. I think that sums up Sydney's season, doesn't it? Incredibly forgettable.
I just want to talk about something else in Sydney.
Yeah, and JPK at 215, like you said, off about 4 games.
Yeah. Look, West Coast market is actually very interesting to me. I'm very interested in how this plays out. My gut reaction was Nick Nui.
Yeah, mine too.
He's not the favourite, though. TK's got him covered here in the market, which I'm actually a bit surprised by. I don't think Kelly's performed to expectation this season.
Do you think that is pure recency bias? Because I think people are tending to forget how difficult Kelly was finding it to find a role in that midfield earlier on in the year.
I do.
And I completely agree. And I think people are forgetting how absolutely phenomenal Nick Nat has been. And I was sceptical at the start of the year about Nick Nat coming back. I didn't. And obviously the shorter quarters have helped him out. I didn't necessarily think he'd be able to do it all year, but he has. And, of course, the last couple of weeks we've really seen Kelly fire, and it has been really good to watch. But he did have a very forgettable first half of the season, and Nick Nat was just good all year. So I think he should be the favourite.
Yeah, I'm not overly keen to play in this one. If you were looking for a bit of value, I'd actually put you in the direction of Dom Sheet at 650.
Dom Sheet's had another good year, but when doesn't he?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think maybe if you're looking for a bit of value here, I don't think Gaff at 475 is value.
No, I think Gaff's another one that's had a very forgettable season. He's shone in a few places, but their midfield really, for how good they are, they really struggled to come together this year for me. And that 5th place finish is a testament to that.
Now, you're gonna smirk at me, you're gonna react to me, you're gonna laugh at me. Jack McRae's one of my best bets of the night here. I think he's a smoky for top 5. There are reasons behind this, though. He gets a lot of the footy, and unlike a lot of the typical seagulls in the league, he's very big-bodied, he's very noticeable. Yes, there's a lot of players going to take votes off him in that midfield, but I would argue that Bontempelli hasn't had the 3-vote game season that he's needed to get enough on McRae.
Yeah, fair enough. I will say one thing, that Caleb Daniel won their best and fairest.
He did.
So, he's also an outside chance. What's he paying? Just out of curiosity.
26 for most votes in the
He's
team.
paying $26 for most votes, and he won their best and fairest.
I think James. I saw dollar signs in your eyes.
That's mental.
Is that going to be one of your best bets of the night? Then?
Oh, I mean, look.
Is your value better than that?
I don't think it comes in, but I do think it's the value better than I think he's at most a $10 chance. What at that? You said McRae and Bont are tied, right? $1.88 a piece.
Yeah. English at 21, Daniel 26, tied with Bailey Smith.
Tim English has 3 votes for the year. That one game, he got like 16 hit-outs to advantage. Other than that, he did nothing.
So you're giving a big push to Caleb Daniel here at 26?
From a market-wise, yes. I still think Bont takes it for me. I know you said McRae has a big body, which makes him more noticeable.
Well, I would point you to Tom Mitchell's season in 2018.
And that's
not as noticeable. It was had a very similar season that year to what McRae's had this year relative to the shorter quarters. That, for me, is enough to take him for Bulldogs, and it's enough for him to sneak into my top 10.
So, yes and no for me. McRae has one thing on that Mitchell season in that he kicks a lot more, but he also uses the ball a lot less efficiently than Mitchell did that year. And obviously, it's easy to go at 70-80% efficiency when you have 42 handballs a game.
Yeah.
But I haven't... There's a reason that they try and get the ball from McRae's hands onto Bont or Caleb Daniel's foot. And for me, I've always thought kicks are a more impactful disposal than handball. And I don't think there's any argument for that. No. But I think this year it was especially noticeable because you don't see those insane numbers on the stat sheet. It's like, oh, okay, he's got 35 touches and the next highest was 25. That's impressive. But it's not like Tom Mitchell, who got 55 touches like 4 times. No, I don't think McRae's 35 touch games are guaranteed shoe-in 3 votes like Tom Mitchell's 50 touch games were.
Okay, I can understand that. I'm going to stick with McRae on this one.
I mean, I also do slightly agree with you with the fact that Bont hasn't had the same amount of 3-vote games this year.
I just don't think... I point you to a few games where he scraped 15 or didn't even get 15 touches.
But we have talked about it in our tier list, how he is someone who can have a huge impact off 15 touches.
That is true. That is very true.
The first one we're super split on, I guess. The first one we're really,
I'm
really
very much in McRae's camp, and you're very much in Bont's camp.
Yeah.
And we normally agree on this.
We do normally agree. I think it'd be robbery for McRae to take it over Bont this year.
Wow, so you're really not with McRae on this one at all.
I just don't think he did much. I don't think he was any part of the reason why Dogs finished top 8. For me, I just think he did McRae things, but he does that every year, and he's been doing that the last 4 years, and they were terrible.
But he also got more attention for it this year, I would argue.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, put it this way, you didn't hear the name. I mean, we rarely heard the name McRae.
Well, that's true.
17, 18, 19. We've heard it quite a bit in 2020.
He was kind of a just really underrated Sea Gully winger for
It was
a
an
while.
afterthought.
And now he's really coming to the own in that inside midfield.
And
Coming to his own in the outside
I think that's going to make a difference. I really do.
Yeah.
I think he's done enough this. I'm not saying, it's free money, go and chuck everything you got on it. But I do think he's at $1.80, I'm happy to take that price.
Fair enough. Yeah, see, as much as I'm very much in Bond's corner, I probably wouldn't take $1.88. I would love to see Caleb take it. I would absolutely love it. But I think McRae for top 5 is
no love for Mitch Wallace at 101?
No. Not unless they're going to give him 3 votes for kicking the first goal of the game and then not seeing him again.
And then just bleeding the whole game.
Yeah. But yeah, no. That's pretty much my thoughts on the Doggies. A lot of vote stealing, though. There will be a lot of vote stealing from them.
I'm surprised the market's so far away from everyone else but the top 2.
Yeah.
Especially, I completely agree about Cody, but Bailey Smith at 26 as well. I mean, he's probably not going to get the votes.
He's had a really good year.
But he's going to get votes, especially with that hairstyle.
And I think, yeah, exactly. And I think it's another recency bias because he did drop off towards the end of the year, but he exploded out of the gates. He really made a name for himself. Before Walshy finished the season how he did, there was a lot of talk of why wasn't this guy the number 1 pick, you know what I mean?
There genuinely was, and, obviously Walsh came in with a wet sail. But, at times, even I was starting to question, was Walsh the right choice despite his start? In fairness, Walsh has very much turned it around now, but it wasn't looking like a guaranteed selection at the time. Well, look, we've got 10 minutes left, which is perfect time for our top 10. We'll go through 1 to 10. I don't think there's any question who finishes number 1.
No, I think if anyone gets within 5 votes of him, it's ludicrous. I would probably back him to win by 10 votes.
Yeah, I can definitely say that.
Like I said, it's not that other people haven't had higher peaks than Neil, but Neil has rarely dropped from an 9 out of 10 from his own standards for me. Only really that one game where he really struggled with the steal tag. And the De Boer tag. But other than that, he's been absolutely excellent for 15 games, and I think he probably polls in every single one of their wins.
Just for your reference, to win by 5 or 6 votes is $3.25. 7 to 10 is also $3.25. So a bit of value there.
Yeah, that is a bit of value.
I mean, I'd be more inclined to go 7 to 10 there.
Yeah, I think so.
Because and again, Boak and Petrarca have their issues with other people in that market that just aren't going to get the votes. Now, I know you've gone for a controversial number 2, so we'll come to you first.
Yep, so number 2 for me is Jack Steele. And again, my argument is, who else on St Kilda do you care about? And my answer is nobody.
This is fair.
Saints won enough games to have a contender in the Brownlow. I think if you finish bottom 4, you can't. Well, obviously, unless you're Cripps, because every single game Carlton gets even close. The man has 40 touches and 4 goals. But aside from freak performances like Cripps last year, Jack Steele's team has won enough games for there to be enough votes for St Kilda to share around. And he's just been by far and away their best player. And it's not even close.
Now, I'm going to go with Boak.
Yeah.
For the reasons I outlined before in Port. Very consistent season. Very strong player. Captaincy bias will help him too. He's noticeable. Earlier in the program, you asked me what is Sam Walsh paying for the Brownlow versus Cripps, because obviously Walsh is the favourite for Carlton. Cripps at 67. I've managed to find Walsh. I had to go for a bit of a journey down the market. 251.
Yeah, see? And I told you I didn't see it.
It's bizarre.
It is bizarre, considering he's the favourite to get most votes.
Like, look, he's not going to win. He's not going to win the middle. This is a moot.
Yeah, but neither is Cripps.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Why?
I know. I think it's just because he's Cripps, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, they're hoping to snag a few people just to go, oh, yeah, no, maybe you can do it.
I can't argue with that. It's going to be tough to see anybody get anywhere near it in terms of Fife not pushing this season. The usual suspects are Fife, Mitchell, Dangerfield, Martin. All the usual suspects aren't top 5 this year.
Oh, I disagree.
You got someone sneaking in?
I got 2 of those people sneaking in.
Really?
2 of those people.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but I have Boak at 3rd.
So we've swapped perfectly. I've gone Steele.
So you've gone Steele at 3rd. Yeah. Yeah, exact same reasons you've said. The man's had a phenomenal season, especially given how consistent he was, how old he was, and his team's top of the ladder. For me, he's a top 5 lock, Boak. Yeah, I think Boak and Neil and Steele are my top 5 locks. Neil's paying $1.03 to finish in the top 3. So maybe...
Boak's $1.03 to finish top 5, so again.
Yeah. Whoa, $1.03. He's a $1.28 on the TAB.
To finish top 5?
Yep, $1.28.
That is... Okay, I don't
And
want to...
Jack
I
Steele,
don't want to encourage irresponsible gambling, but $1.28 to finish top 5? Boak, really?
Yeah.
Take that and run. Look, we will speed this up because I am conscious of time. So
we do need to get a move.
We have really got to it. 4th, I've gone with Petrarca. Only because I don't think that a lot of the other influences around him get enough votes to go and nip it off him. I think he does enough for 4th, but I think there's a gap between 3rd and 4th.
See, I've gone Dangerfield at 4th.
Really? That's a huge call.
I have gone Dangerfield at 4th.
Okay, fair enough.
I think he's still Dangerfield. And he's so impactful. He's so tall. He kicks goals. He gets the ball. And he gets about 9 free kicks a game. So
Yes, he does.
He obviously has a bit of umpire love, you know what I mean? So I think Dangerfield sneaks in at 4. And I've actually gone Dustin Martin at 5.
Really?
I don't think Petrarca makes the top 5. I genuinely think Gawn and Oliver steal too many votes from him.
That's a massive call.
It is a big call, you're right.
But Martin as well, really.
Yeah.
I've gone Zach Merritt for 5th.
Oh, good call.
Again, if it comes down to a very similar steal effect, obviously...
Yeah, but
know,
the difference being Essendon won one
well,
game.
that's what I'm saying. You know, obviously, he is Costco still in that regard, but it is worth mentioning... They're not a show sponsor, by the way. It is worth mentioning that he's just going to get votes.
He is.
He's naturally going to get votes.
But also, Essendon got thumped a lot in games where they will not get any votes.
But that also won't hurt him either way.
That's true.
That's water off a duck's back in terms of where he gets 3 votes.
That's true, but that does hurt him in the overall market if he's getting thumped by Western Bulldogs and Macrae polls 3 or Bontempelli polls 3. Or
Merritt's $1.45 for top 10. I'm happy to make that one of my best bets for the night as well. I think you choose that in.
Yeah, I think so as well. Dangerfield's had $1.70 for top 10. Surely you'll take that.
Yeah, I'm actually chucking Dangerfield at 6. I think he's done enough. Macrae at 7 for me. I really think he's done enough this season to push up for that.
So I've got Petrarca at 6, just out the top 5. And then I've got... So for me, my next 3 are kind of all in one. Because I don't have the confidence to pick any particular person. And that is Macrae, Bontempelli, and Merritt.
Just wherever in that 7.
Yeah.
Is that 7, 8, 9?
Yeah. And then the 10 rounds out for me with Maxi Gawn.
Yeah, look, it's hard for me to really split anyone kind of beyond 7. I'm happy to kind of cut off my exact picks at 7.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll do 6.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with Macrae to 7. It's pretty open. I'm still picking Guthrie for top 10, who is $3.50 by the way in market. So if that's something you're
$4 on TAB, mate.
Even better.
It is better.
I don't mind that actually at all. I think that Rockcliffe certainly could creep it because when Boak has it, he has.
Yeah.
Which could be enough for him. And
like we said, Port won so many games. There's going to be so many votes for that team going around.
I'd be happy to consider that. I think actually Walsh at $6 for top 10 is a chance. I wouldn't call it, a lock, but I think it's a chance. I wouldn't talk you out of that. He's certainly got the ability to do it. Elsewhere, there's not much else from further back in the field, is there really? Lions maybe? Purely for the when Neil gets 3, he gets 2.
Yeah, I think he's an outside.
He's probably got, 6 or 7 2-vote games?
Yeah.
And then maybe 1 or 2 threes. And I think actually at $10 for top 10.
Yeah, that is good.
I'm going to go on a limb and say I'm going to call it now. Jared Lyons will make the top 10 this year in the Brownlow. I've talked myself into this. Jared Lyons is going to make top 10.
Big call. I don't disagree.
And it's one where I'm probably going to end up looking silly when he gets 4 votes for the year.
Well, we are used to that, mate.
No,
both of us, to be fair.
I was going to say it's a bit ironic, isn't it? But look, I'm actually happy to go on a limb and go with that. Lyons at $10. I think he's more of a chance than Hawkins, Jones, Zorko, Billings, and both the Kellys who are all in front of him.
Yeah, I would agree.
I'd be more confident with that. We're about to wrap it up, Jen. Anything else you want to add before we finish up this part of That Was the Season That Was?
No. Like I said, Petrarca's overrated. Degoe sucks. That's all. What about you?
Well, we've got 2 more episodes to come in the segment. We've got an All-Australian one to do. And we've also got the grand final preview, which we'll be doing next week.
Oh,
So,
I cannot wait for the Grandy. That Australian episode, the gloves will come off too.
yeah, they definitely will. Also, a new episode coming out with this one as well for the main series.
Oh yeah, the Fellowship of the Keys. We'll be talking about our big key forwards of the turn of the century.
I'm excited for that.
It is a good episode. We love Fraser Garrick. We love the G Train.
If you love reminiscing, this is the episode for you.
It
James,
is.
pleasure as always to have you on the show. Fantastic to have now pumped out quite a few episodes. And
Yeah, really chugging them along.
we are. Big off-season coming up, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be really fun to follow, the draft trades, everything, see what's going on, see what happens with the Bombers.
Bad.
Yeah, bad for sure.
Yeah. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with all the latest information. I'm Jesse Dart. Thank you for listening to Dining Around Podcast, and we'll speak to you soon.